back to the Doug Pagitt Radio Show on AM 950, the voice of Minnesota. I'm John Music, the sidekick, and I'm joined in the studio with our guest host, Tony Jones. And we spent this whole hour talking about life after death and hell. And do you have any closing thoughts, Tony?
Well, John, first of all, who needs Doug Pagitt? Was he even missed?
Amen to that. I didn't.
If you have a Sharpie, that banner behind you, could change it to... We just take it over.
It says the John Music Radio Show on the back.
We'll just lock ourselves in here and not let... No, we miss Doug, and thanks. My word of gratitude to Doug. Best of luck to Carla Barnhill, who will be the second ever guest host of Doug Pagitt Radio Show next Sunday.
Yeah.
It's been a great 2 hours. To recap, Keith DeRose joined us in the first hour, a philosopher at Yale University who's a Christian Universalist. And bottom line, I'd say that Keith was saying, look, if human beings really have freedom to choose for or against Christ in this life, or against the gospel of good news that Jesus came to bring to us, we also have that opportunity after death. Now, where he may differ from Rob is it seems like Rob Bell is saying in his book, Love Wins, some people will still choose against Christ after death. Yeah. Keith is saying, and I guess I would agree with him on this, if there is a choice after death, I find it kind of unreasonable to believe that some people wouldn't, when seeing God in God's fullness, would say no to God.
Yeah, to meet your Creator, to still go, no.
I'll take the lake of fire.
Right.
For eternity, I'd rather have a lake of fire than. Yeah. And there are ways people get around that by saying, well, for hell, some people would, being in God's presence for an eternity would be hellish for some people because they'd be so convicted of their sins and things like that. But I think that's
I'll take the conviction.
It's a little bit anthropomorphizing of God. It's like making God a little too human, I think, or a little making the afterlife a little too much like this life.
Yeah.
To begin the second hour, we had Michael Horton on, who's a vocal critic of Rob's and of mine and of others in this more progressive Protestant camp. And, he was fair in that he just said, I think the single most important thing to understand about Christianity is that when Jesus died, he died in order to lift the curse of death from us. That's the reason Jesus died. There may be other ways that you can fill out that picture, but the primary thing to understand is, and if you don't understand it this way, you really aren't Christian.
Yeah.
At least, fair enough. That's his perspective. But I think what Rob said so beautifully in the last segment, and I appreciate him coming on, is that in fact, God's mercy is incredibly wide, more wide than we could probably ever guess. That Paul writes about Jesus coming to reconcile all things to the Father, and all things, I guess, seems to mean all things. So, I think what Rob's tapping into is he's scratching an itch that so many people have.
Yeah.
And call it a sign of the times, John. Call it what you will, but there are a lot of people, even Ian said it during one of the breaks. It just... For a lot of people, particularly younger people living in this postmodern context, a lot of people just don't understand why a loving God would allow people eternal torment because they did bad stuff here on earth, or because they didn't hear the gospel presented to them clearly enough, or because they were born in the wrong part of the world at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So they're thrown into a lake of fire with no chance of ever coming back into the embrace of God. And what I think Rob has cracked open, and this is what I've always said about philosophy. Philosophers are just the first people to say what everyone else is thinking deep in their subconscious. That's what happens in philosophy. It's happened over and over again as philosophy has evolved. Theology, you might say in some ways it's a little different, but it's similar. It's got some of the same instincts. And I think what Rob Bell is doing in his book Love Wins is tapping into something that I've predicted for the last couple of years that is really, really important to a lot of younger Christians. And that is, help me reconcile a God who loves me with a place of eternal torment.
What do you think is happening that maybe younger, newer Christians are kind of losing their grip on what their parents' church have taught them and are more open to this?
I mean, in some ways, what people would say in the past, I think, is, look, there's no good news without bad news, right?
Oh, I've heard that, yeah.
There's no love without hate. There's no such thing as light without darkness. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people have used those metaphors with you before. Your youth pastor did or whatever.
Right.
I'm sure you never did, but...
No.
No, but some people did. And so they would say, well, there's no good news unless there's bad news. Like, what does Jesus come to counteract? And I think that that made a lot of sense in people who lived in a much more black and white world.
Yeah.
And I think that as we live ever more fully into a radically pluralistic context where there are so many religions and so many choices and so many interpretations of our religion.
Yeah.
I mean, myriad interpretations of Christianity. So much so that we can get 3 experts in the Christian
right.
world to come on today and have 3 kind of different opinions, and then you and I are sitting here and every listener out there too, and people are looking up different theologies and they're reading books by people. I mean, more than ever before, Christians have the opportunity to avail themselves of enormous differences of opinion.
Yeah.
For some people, that's a great threat. For other people, that shows great promise because it allows people to use their own rationality and to plumb the depths of their own spirit to find out what really makes sense for them about the gospel, the good news of Jesus Christ. And I think Rob Bell, like I said, he's cracking something open, and he's saying it in a way that, yes, other people have said it before, and they've used other kind of language, and they've had more footnotes, and the books have been longer, and they've been, said they were by some university publishing house or something.
Yeah.
That's not his angle, right?
Right.
Rob's angle is he's saying it in a way that is approachable and people can understand. And I think probably even Michael Horton, maybe even John Piper would admit, Rob Bell in this book, he's scratching a particular itch that people have right now. And that is to say, I believe Jesus matters. I believe that what Jesus did on the cross is fundamentally important to Christianity, but maybe it doesn't necessitate a bad news. Maybe you don't have to have a lake of fire to have an eternal, blissful paradise on the other side of it. And he's asking that question. He's not even conclusively answering it in the book, but he's asking the question, and I really do hope that people read the book. My blog, your blog, Doug's blog. I mean, come tomorrow night if you're in the Twin Cities area. Wayzata Community Church, doors open at 6 to hear Rob Bell live and hear him talk about some of these things.
Well, Tony, you've done a great job today, really.
Thanks, John.
I'll work with you any week.
Great to be here.
Yeah. Well, you've been listening to the Doug Pagitt radio show on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and on www.dougpagittradio.com. We appreciate you listening. And stay tuned next week when we're going to have the second guest host ever, Carla Barnhill, who's featured regularly on our show. She's going to come in and take the chair and lead the discussions. And I'll be here as well. And I don't know if Ian will be here, but he'll probably be hungover if he is. No, Justin will be. He will definitely be hungover. So we'll have that in common with him. So stay tuned next week, and we hope to see you again. God bless y'all.
The Capitol Steps, May 12th at the Orpheum Theater. This irreverent comedy troupe, started by actual Senate staffers, keeps up to date with all the current events and puts a spin on it the way only Washington can. You definitely won't be able to escape a few jabs at the Tea Party.
We're holding lots of rallies with our misspelled signs on display now.
Touchy subjects such as immigration, they touch it.
See there